"Get out of my garage right now." Ashley's voice cut through the air like a blade. I stood there holding my wrench, the one I'd used for 30 years building everything I owned. She was in my workshop, using my tools, my workbench, acting like she owned the place. But the worst part? My own son Brandon came running into the garage, and instead of defending his father, he started clapping. Actually clapping like he was watching some show. "That's right, honey. Finally someone put him into his..." He didn't get to finish because something inside me snapped. Or maybe it finally woke up. My name is Rick Morrison. I'm 58 years old, and for the past 2.5 years, I've been living a nightmare in my own home. Let me tell you how I got to that moment of complete humiliation in my own garage. When Brandon first brought Ashley home 7 years ago, I thought my boy had found someone special. She was 26 then, pretty, confident, real confident, too confident I'd say now. At our first dinner, she barely looked at me, just focused on Brandon, touching his arm constantly, laughing too loud at jokes that weren't even funny. I figured she was nervous. Give her time, I told myself. Boy, was I wrong. They got married 6 years ago. Nice ceremony that I helped pay for, though Ashley told everyone her parents covered everything. I remember sitting at some back table with distant relatives while she and Brandon acted like I didn't exist. I went home that night and had a good cry, but I dried my tears quick. Their day, not mine. After the wedding, they got their own apartment. Lasted exactly 8 months before Brandon showed up at my door with suitcases and that sheepish look he'd had since he was a kid needing something. "Dad, it's just temporary," he said, "until we get back on our feet. Ashley's looking for better opportunities, and I'm waiting on this big promotion. I had a 3-bedroom house, too big for just me since losing my Sarah 8 years back. Of course, son," I said, "this will always be your home." If I'd known temporary meant 2.5 years of hell, I might have thought twice. The first few months weren't too bad. Ashley worked at some marketing company downtown. Brandon had his consulting gig, always on his laptop, always stressed about the next client. I kept to my routine, worked my construction jobs, spent evenings in my garage workshop, kept the house running like always. But things started changing. First came the little comments. "Rick, could you maybe not use power tools so early? Ashley needs her sleep. Rick, you're tracking mud through the house again. Rick, maybe it's time to update this old furniture. Looks like something from the 80s. I put up with it because I loved my son and wanted his marriage to work. Because I'd been taught that a good father always sacrifices for his family. But Ashley wasn't family, even if she had my last name now. 6 months in, Ashley quit her job. "I'm burned out," she told Brandon. "I need time to find my passion." That break lasted 18 months, and counting. 18 months of watching her on my couch, scrolling through social media while I cleaned around her like some kind of maid. And Brandon? He just supported everything she did. "Dad, Ashley's going through a tough transition," he'd say. "She's trying to find herself." Find herself while I cooked, cleaned, and paid most of the bills because Brandon's consulting work was drying up fast. The disrespect got worse. She started giving me orders in my own house. "Rick, I want the TV tonight. My show's on." "Rick, my parents are coming this weekend. Make sure the guest room's perfect." "Rick, don't use that soap. It irritates my skin." My soap, my house, like I was the guest and she was the owner. But what happened last Saturday changed everything, even if they didn't know it yet. I was in my garage workshop, my sanctuary, the place where I'd restored classic cars, built furniture, and fixed neighbors' problems for 25 years. Just working on my old Chevy, nothing fancy. The garage was perfectly organized. Pegboard walls with every tool in its place. Labeled storage bins. A workbench I'd built myself from solid oak. This was my domain where everything made sense. Then Ashley and her mother, Patricia, came barging in with shopping bags from some craft store, talking loud and acting like they owned the place. "Today, I'm going to organize this mess," Ashley announced, looking around my perfectly organized workshop like it was some disaster zone. She gestured at my tool pegboard with disgust. "All these rusty old things everywhere. It's like a museum," Patricia laughed. "My girl's always been good at fixing things, unlike some people who just hoard junk. 30 years of craftsman tools, snap-on equipment I'd saved up for. Precision instruments that built half the houses in this neighborhood. They called it junk. They started moving my tools around, pulling things off my pegboard, rearranging my workbench. 30 years of organization, and they're treating it like their personal storage unit. Ashley grabbed my Torx wrench, a $200 precision tool, and tossed it into a random drawer. I tried to speak up. "Excuse me, I was working on—" Ashley cut me off with that tone you'd use on a dog. "Rick, this is my space now too. I need room for my craft supplies. Could you maybe find somewhere else to play with your toys?" My toys. Tools that built half this neighborhood, that put food on our table, that taught Brandon how to fix things with his own hands. And she calls them toys. Something burned in my chest, but I kept quiet like always. That's what I did. Kept quiet, swallowed my pride. "Sure," I mumbled, and started walking out of my own garage. Then I heard Patricia whisper, just loud enough for me to catch every word. "You finally put him in his place. This house needed someone to take charge." Both of them laughed as I walked away with my head down and my heart breaking. I sat in my bedroom listening to them crash around in my workshop. 2 hours later, Ashley's whole family showed up for some impromptu gathering. Her father, Vincent, a real estate agent who always bragged about deals he probably never made. Her sisters, Nicole and Stephanie, just as entitled as Ashley. Cousins, aunts, all walking into my house without so much as a hello. I stayed upstairs like a prisoner, smelling the barbecue they were cooking on my grill in my backyard. Then Brandon knocked on my door without waiting for an answer. "Dad, what are you doing hiding up here? Come down. It's Ashley's family dinner." I looked at my son, this 36-year-old man I barely recognized anymore. "Brandon, she kicked me out of my own garage." He sighed like I was the problem. "Dad, please don't be dramatic. She's just trying to make some improvements. Besides, you know how stressed she's been. Always Ashley's stress, never her complete lack of respect." I went downstairs because I didn't want to look like the bad guy, put on a clean shirt and joined the party with a fake smile. My living room was full of people. My living room with my furniture, my photos on the walls. But I was invisible. Nobody greeted me, not one person. When dinner was announced, I followed everyone to my backyard. All the patio chairs were taken, every single one. I just stood there feeling my face burn with embarrassment. Vincent looked at me and chuckled. "Looks like no room for you, Rick. Maybe eat inside? You spend all your time there anyway." Everyone laughed, and Brandon said nothing. My own son said nothing. But then my phone buzzed. Text message from Gary Stevens, my accountant for the past 15 years. "Rick, urgent. Need to talk about your property documents. Found something you need to know. Brandon tried to refinance using forged paperwork. Call me." My blood went cold. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood. Brandon, my son, had tried to steal my house using fake documents. The house I'd owned for 25 years, paid for with my own sweat and blood. I went. Inside without anyone noticing? Why would they? I was invisible in my own home. Called Gary immediately. "Rick, thank God you called back," Gary said. 2 weeks ago, the bank contacted me about documents I supposedly certified for refinancing your property. Documents I'd never seen. Someone forged my signature, submitted papers claiming you gave Brandon power of attorney over the house. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The bank caught it because the numbers didn't add up, Gary continued. I stopped everything and opened an investigation. "Rick, Brandon tried to put a $120,000 lien on your property without your knowledge. That's fraud." $120,000. My house was worth about $320,000, and my son tried to steal almost half of it using fake papers. "There's more," Gary said. "I did some digging. Brandon and Ashley have debts totaling $140,000. Credit cards, business loans for that failed startup, personal loans for their lifestyle. They're drowning, Rick." Everything made sense now. The way they'd been looking at me lately, like I was in the way of something. The comments about the house being too big for one person. They wanted me gone so they could take everything. "Gary, I need you to document all of this," I said. "But don't file anything yet. I want to see how far they'll go." That night, I heard them talking in their room. The walls aren't that thick, and they weren't exactly whispering. "I don't understand why the bank rejected the loan," Ashley was saying. "Matt said those documents were foolproof." Matt, Brandon's friend who apparently helped with the forgery. "Someone got suspicious," Brandon replied. "But don't worry, we'll find another way. We need that money fast." The collectors aren't waiting much longer. Your father just sitting in this big house all alone, Ashley said. It's wasteful. This property's worth a fortune. My house, my life's work. They were talking about it like it was already theirs. I couldn't sleep that night, but something changed in those dark hours. Instead of just feeling hurt, I started feeling something else. Anger. Cold, calculated anger that made me think clearly for the first time in years. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Brandon only knew Rick the handyman dad, the guy who fixed things around the house and always said yes. He'd never met Rick the businessman. See, for the past 25 years, while I played the humble construction worker, I'd been building something they never suspected. Morrison Construction started as just me and a pickup truck after Sarah died. I needed purpose, needed to stay busy. Started small, home repairs, small renovations. But I was good at it, real good. Word spread. One job became 10, 10 became 50. 5 years in, I hired my first crew. 10 years in, I had 3 crews running different projects. Now, Morrison Construction runs 4 full crews, handles commercial contracts, residential developments. We built the new medical center downtown, renovated the high school, constructed half the housing development on Maple Street. Last year alone, we pulled in $900,000 in revenue, but I kept it quiet. Used a business manager, Nathan Hughes, to handle the day-to-day operations. I wanted Brandon to love me for who I was as a father, not what I had in the bank. My total assets? $1.4 million, the house they wanted to steal, 2 rental properties bringing in $2,200 a month, business equipment worth $180,000, and investment accounts Gary managed for me. All hidden while my son planned to put me in a nursing home and take my simple house. Sunday morning, I went downstairs early. The place was still trash from their party, but for the first time in years, I didn't clean it up. Let it sit exactly how they left it. Brandon came down around 11, expecting everything to be spotless as usual. He stopped short, seeing the mess. "Dad, aren't you going to clean this up?" I looked him dead in the eye. "No," I said simply. "Ashley's family made the mess. Ashley can clean. It..." His face changed. Surprise, then annoyance. "Dad, don't start with your attitude. You know Ashley's been stressed." I walked away without answering. That was the beginning of my plan. Over the next week, I made some calls. Gary put extra protection on all my assets. They couldn't touch anything without triggering alerts. I also had a security company install discrete cameras throughout the house. If they were going to try something, I wanted evidence. The cameras proved useful real quick. 2 days later, I caught Brandon and Ashley talking to some guy in a suit in my living room. From my phone, I watched and listened. The appraisal came back at $325,000, the guy was saying. "With the right paperwork, we can move fast on this." "How long?" Ashley asked. 2 weeks, but I need $5,000 up front for the documentation fees. Brandon nodded. "I'll get it." They shook hands. My son had just agreed to sell my house out from under me, again. I saved the recording and sent it to Gary with a message, "Time to move." Gary called within minutes. "Rick, this is enough for fraud charges, multiple counts. You want me to call the police?" "Not yet," I said. "I want them to hang themselves completely first." The next few days were the hardest of my life, acting normal while they planned my destruction. Ashley even cooked dinner one night, calling me to the table with a sweet smile. I thought we should eat together as a family. Family. The word meant nothing coming from her. Brandon brought me coffee one morning, trying to butter me up. "Dad, Ashley and I have been thinking about your situation. My situation. Like I was a problem to be solved. This house is getting too much for you to handle alone," he continued. "We found some really nice assisted living places. You'd have people your age, activities, medical care right there." "And where would you live?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "Well, we could take over the house payments, help you out that way. Maybe buy it from you at a fair price so you'd have money for the facility. Fair price. They wanted to steal my $320,000 house and stick me in a home." "I'll think about it," I said, watching his face light up. That night, I heard them celebrating in their room, celebrating what they thought was my surrender. Thursday evening, Ashley announced they were hosting a family barbecue on Saturday. "Vincent wants to get everyone together," she said. "Big announcement to make." I knew exactly what announcement they were planning. Friday afternoon, I called Gary. Bring everything, documents, recordings, the whole file. It's time. Saturday morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. I got up early, made my coffee, and sat in my garage workshop looking at everything I'd built. The workbench where I'd taught Brandon to use tools when he was 8. The pegboard where every tool had its place. The corner where I'd restored my '67 Mustang, working nights and weekends for 2 years until it purred like a kitten. This was my sanctuary, my proof that I was more than just some old man taking up space. The barbecue started at 2 p.m. Ashley's whole family showed up. Vincent, Patricia, the sisters, cousins, even some neighbors Ashley had invited to witness what she thought would be my humiliation. All dressed up like it was some celebration. Brandon was manning my grill, playing the perfect host in my backyard, using my charcoal, my tools, my everything. I watched from the kitchen window as Ashley played queen of the castle, directing people where to sit, what to drink, how to enjoy themselves in my space. She'd set up tables on my back deck, hung lights I'd never seen before, even put out flowers in pots I didn't recognize, like she was already the lady of the house. Around 4 p.m., Vincent tapped his beer bottle to get everyone's attention. The whole crowd gathered around the deck, maybe 20 people total. Vincent was grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Family and friends," he started, his voice carrying that fake sincerity he used when selling houses. "I want to make an important announcement about Rick's future." Here it came, my own execution in front of an audience. As you all know, Rick's been struggling with this big house, and Brandon and Ashley have stepped up to help. Rick's decided to downsize to a nice senior community where he'll have the care and companionship he needs. Murmurs of sympathy from the crowd. A few people nodded like this was such a wise, caring decision. And Brandon will be taking over the family home, keeping it in the Morrison name where it belongs. Applause. They were applauding my supposed eviction from my own house, my own life. Brandon stood up, taking Ashley's hand. His face was flushed with what looked like pride, but I knew was really relief that his financial problems were about to disappear. "Thanks, everyone. It means a lot to have family support during transitions like this." He looked directly at me, standing alone by the back door. "Dad, do. You want to say something?" Every eye in that backyard turned to me. Ashley was smiling that fake smile she put on when she wanted something. Vincent looked pleased with himself. Patricia had her phone out, probably planning to record my grateful speech about how wonderful this all was. Instead, I stepped forward. "Actually, there's something you all need to know." The yard went quiet. Brandon's confident expression flickered. "This house isn't being sold," I said clearly, my voice carrying to every corner of the deck. "Because this house doesn't belong to Brandon. It's mine. It's been in my name for 25 years. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vincent's smile faded. "Well, of course it's technically in your name, but Brandon's your son." "And there's something else none of you know," I interrupted. I pulled out my phone and called Gary. "You can come in now." The side gate opened and Gary walked into the backyard carrying his leather briefcase. The confusion was visible on every face. Ashley's color drained. Brandon looked like he'd seen a ghost. "This is Gary Stevens, my accountant and legal advisor," I announced. Gary walked up to the deck and set his case on one of Ashley's fancy tables, right next to her flower arrangements. "For the past 25 years," I continued, "while you all treated me like some burden, I was building something." Gary opened his briefcase and started pulling out documents, financial statements, property deeds, business licenses, all with my name on them, Morrison Construction. Maybe you've seen our signs around town. I saw Ashley's sister Nicole gasp. Morrison Construction had built the medical center where she worked. 4 crews, commercial contracts, residential developments. All mine. I pointed to the documents Gary was laying out. "These are the financial statements. Last year's revenue, $900,000. The silence was complete. You could hear the neighbor's air conditioner humming 2 houses down. "My total net worth," I said, letting each word sink in, "is $1.4 million. Ashley dropped her drink. The plastic cup hit the concrete deck with a hollow sound that seemed to echo forever. "Impossible," Vincent muttered. "You're just a handyman." "I was a handyman to you because none of you ever bothered to really know me," I replied. "You saw work clothes and old trucks and assumed I was nothing." I looked directly at Brandon. "Including you, son. Gary spoke up. I also have evidence of attempted fraud. He pulled out a different folder. Brandon attempted to refinance this property twice using forged documents. We have recordings of him planning to sell the house without his father's knowledge. I took out my phone and played the recording from earlier in the week. Brandon and Ashley plotting with their accomplice, clear as day. Brandon's voice talking about getting $5,000 for documentation fees. Ashley asking about timelines. All of it captured in perfect digital clarity. Brandon's face went white as a sheet. Ashley started crying, but not from shame, from panic. Pure, desperate panic. I could have you both arrested right now, I said. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. Gary's already spoken with the police. They're ready to move. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. But I won't. You know why? Brandon's eyes flickered with hope. Because despite everything, you're still my son. My voice cracked a little. But there are conditions. Vincent leaned forward. I could see him calculating, wondering how this affected his own interests. First, you're moving out. 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Ashley squeaked. Where are we supposed to go? That's your problem, I said. Second, you're both getting jobs. Real jobs. No more sitting around living off me while I work 50-hour weeks. Third, I continued, I'm going to pay off your $140,000 in debts. Vincent perked up immediately. I could see dollar signs in his eyes. But I'm paying the creditors directly, I added. You won't see a cent. And Vincent, about that money you loaned them. I'll pay that too, but without the interest you were charging your own daughter. His face fell hard. Fourth, Brandon, you're going to therapy. Both of you. Learn how to be responsible adults instead of overgrown children expecting handouts. And fifth, my voice turned ice cold. If you ever lie to me again, steal from me again, or disrespect me again, I'll cut you off completely. No second chances. Brandon nodded frantically. Yes, Dad. Whatever you say, I promise. Promises are cheap, son. Actions matter now. Gary packed up his documents. The party was over, and everyone knew it. Ashley's family started making excuses and leaving. The neighbors found reasons to head home. Within 20 minutes, it was just me, Brandon, Ashley, and Gary standing on my deck. We'll start looking for apartments tomorrow, Brandon said quietly. See that you do. 2 weeks later, Brandon and Ashley moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy. A one-bedroom place above a pharmacy, $800 a month, plus utilities. But it was theirs, paid for with their own money. Brandon found work with a local marketing firm. Entry level, half what he used to make, but honest work. Ashley got a job at a restaurant downtown, waiting tables for the first time in her life. It's been 8 months now. Brandon calls me every week, not to ask for money, but just to talk. Real conversations about life, about responsibility, about becoming a man he can be proud of. He's still in therapy, still learning how to budget, still figuring out how to live within his means. I didn't understand what you sacrificed for me, he told me last month. Working all those years, building your business, and I just assumed it was easy. I thought you owed me everything because I was your son. Ashley's taken longer to come around. For months, she barely spoke to me, except for forced politeness when she picked up Brandon. But last month, something changed. She brought me a birthday cake, store-bought, nothing fancy, but she brought it herself. I was jealous, she admitted as we sat in my living room. Jealous of how much Brandon loved and respected you. I wanted to be the most important person in his life, and I thought tearing you down would build me up. She looked around the room, at the family photos, the furniture I'd had for decades, the life I'd built. I never saw what you really were. I only saw what I thought you weren't. It wasn't much, but it was honest. A start. Last weekend, Brandon came over to help me with some work in the garage. We spent the afternoon organizing my tools, cleaning the workbench, talking about the projects I had coming up. For the first time in years, it felt like my son was actually there with me, not just physically, but mentally. Can you teach me how to use the table saw properly? He asked. I want to build Ashley a bookshelf for her birthday. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Humility, respect, maybe even a little of the boy I'd raised. Sure, son, but we're going to do it right. Safety first, precision second, speed never. He smiled. Just like you always told me. That's right. I'm not saying we're one big happy family now. Trust takes time to rebuild, and respect has to be earned back day by day. But for the first time in years, when I walk into my garage workshop, it feels like mine again. My tools are where I left them. My workbench is organized the way I like it. And when I fire up my old Chevy on Sunday mornings and the engine purrs like it should, I remember who I really am. Not just Rick the handyman dad, but Rick Morrison, the man who built something from nothing and protected it when it mattered most. Sometimes the people you love most will test you the hardest, but knowing your worth and standing up for it, that's not selfish. That's survival. That's dignity. And sometimes it's the only way to save the people you love from themselves. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give. Someone isn't solving their problems, but allowing them to face the consequences of their choices and grow through the struggle. Real wealth isn't measured by what you own, but by the respect you command and the legacy you leave. And both of those can only be built through character, not inherited through blood.